New research shows that staying up for 3 days straight may just be a cure for depression. Welcome back to the channel. My name is Jesse Lyon, a licensed counselor who gives you the psychology behind pop culture. And before we get going, do me a favor, hit the subscribe button. Come on, you're watching the video, I'm helping you out. Do me a favor, hit that button. And a big shout out to Goofy from the Discord server who sent me something very interesting that sparked this whole conversation from the Daily Mail. Now listen, it's the Daily Mail, right? So we got to do our fact checking, but don't worry, I did it for you so you don't have to. But it claims why depriving people of sleep could treat depression. Clickbaity title, so I decided to use it myself, but there may actually be some evidence to this. There may actually be some validity to what they're saying here. It sounds bizarre, but doctors say that staying awake for 36 hours can reset the body clock. Just don't try it at home. So I read a little bit of the article and then I did some digging of my own, and I found this very interesting sort of synopsis of the current research. Apparently, this has been going on for quite some time. They've been talking about this. In 1818, Johann, can't say the rest of his name, considered to have been the first professor of psychiatry at a university to suggest that sleep deprivation might alleviate melancholia, which is what they used to call depression way back in the 1800s. Remember, 1800s was back when they were still doing lobotomies and throwing people in insane asylums. So we've come a little bit since then. But in 1959, formal reports began to emerge, again from Germany, suggesting that a night of sleeplessness could actually boost moods and depression, which is interesting because we do know that one of the big symptoms of mania is a reduction in sleep. And mania, if you're not familiar, is the positive side. Well, it's got some negatives for sure, but it's the upper side of bipolar. So bipolar, you've got this really intense depression that is miserable, but you go through these like maybe a couple days or even up to 2 weeks worth of time where you're in a manic cycle. You only need to sleep like 30 minutes, 3 hours at a night, and you've got all this energy to go do stuff. It was actually very famously known that Van Gogh was a sufferer of bipolar, and so oftentimes during his deep depression or his heightened mania would paint. And so there were some very interesting things that Van Gogh did. You can look those up later. But during these times of mania, when he had all this energy, he would paint, and that was kind of some of what gave him his really artistic creativity. It's also been rumored, now I can't say here nor there, that Kanye West suffers from bipolar as well, and that may be how he creates his music and all of the many businesses that he's involved with as well. God, don't get me started on Kanye West drama. But experimental trials in the 1970s went on to confirm that there is a benefit from staying up. Since then, study after study has shown that spending a night without sleep, especially with the lights on, indeed produces mood benefits for about half the people with depression. Now, the reason I bring up the bipolar and the mania is that there does seem to be this balance between dopamine and, which is the feel-good chemical, and sleep. If you got a lot of dopamine, you're usually up, you're usually active, you're not going to want to sleep as much. And as we know, when you're experiencing depression, usually you want to just sleep all the damn time. So you can see there's like a balance. The more dopamine, the less you want to sleep. The less dopamine, the more you want to sleep. But dopamine makes you feel good, so if you got less of it, you're going to be depressed. So there's this weird sort of connection between dopamine, sleep, and happiness. Now, there have been some conflicting reports, and we're going to go over that here because they did this with rats, and well, let me just tell you, it's not good. The effects of this approach, dubbed wake therapy, offer the bonus of being immediate. Like most antidepressants, which require a few weeks to work, and actually in my clinical experience, antidepressants take about a month, even up to 6 weeks to work. So if your antidepressants are working in a few weeks, that's pretty damn fast. But sleep deprivation has advantages that happen very quickly. Now, there are some disadvantages though, like we know that chronic sleep deprivation has some very terrible side effects, and we're not talking about that. Just because you stay up and don't sleep does not mean that you're going to cure your depression. It's also interesting to note that through the research that I've been reading, it says that it's about a 50-50. Half of people who have depression who do this wakeful therapy and stay up for 36 hours have an important and an improved affect the next day. The other half, it just makes them sadder. So it's not a miracle cure like our good friends over here at the Daily Mail are claiming it to be, but it's interesting to note and requires some further research. As anyone who has parented an infant can attest, that has unwanted spillover effects on other aspects of their life. You stay up, you get sad, you get a little loopy, it can have some negative effects. Identifying processes in the brain that underlie sleep-deprived boosting of mood could lead to therapies that are less burdensome than enduring a wakeful night. So as with most studies, this one started in mice, and the novel experiment setup subjected mice that did not have a genetic predisposition to depression or psychological disorders to mild sleep deprivation, kind of like pulling an all-nighter in school. Researchers kept the mice awake just long enough to make them uncomfortable, but not so long that they were completely stressed out. Now, after the sleep deprivation, the mice exhibited behaviors akin to a state of mania, like in bipolar, which included, and here's kind of the problem, increased aggression, hyperactivity, and hypersexuality. Does it sound like some friends that you know about who stay up all night and behave in certain ways? I'm not calling anybody out. I'm just saying you might want to send them this video. These behaviors were in stark contrast to those of the control group, which had been allowed to sleep naturally. Again, don't get me wrong. The research is very clear that chronic sleep deprivation had an 86% greater chance of developing depression than if you got a good night's sleep. So the conclusion of the study is that yes, 1 or 2 nights of sleep deprivation, if you are depressed, could help reset your circadian rhythm. And that's really what we're talking about. It's all about resetting that balance, because if you're sleeping all day or going to bed at weird times of night and not having that good consistency and routine in your life, you're going to experience some really negative effects. Staying up to create kind of this like sleep inertia, right? Like you really want to go to sleep after staying up for a couple days could help get you back into sync, which is a huge deal for your depression. That routine, that rhythm is one of the things that I talk about with my clients quite a bit. If somebody comes in and they're depressed and I ask them, are you brushing your teeth? Are you taking a shower? Do you have a routine? Are you getting out of bed and going to do things with your day? And they tell me no. The first thing that I do is like, we're not even going to talk about, of course we can, but we're not going to even talk about what made you depressed or why you're sad. Number one thing is you're not going to feel good if you don't have that routine, that consistency, and the physiological things in place to get yourself feeling better. So take a shower. If you need to stay up for 2 days straight so you can reset your circadian rhythm and get back on track, freaking do it. That's fine with me. Then we can start to deal with how did you get depressed in the first place and what emotional holdups are causing you to experience this. Because if those things are out of balance, either way, you're chronically sleep deprived or you're oversleeping and out of balance, both end up in depression. And so really, more than anything, it's not about staying up. It's very much about balance. So kind of the conclusion of this whole thing, and I love the way that they put this, is the antidepressant effect of staying awake is transient. It only lasts for a little bit. And we know the importance of a good night's sleep. I would say you are better off hitting the gym or going for a nice walk. This new knowledge is more important when it comes to matching a person with the right antidepressant. So it helps to see what your brain is going to respond to well. And I think that's really cool because one of the things that people don't understand about psychiatry is that it's such a new science. And when we are working with someone in psychiatry, like giving them medication to help with their mood, it's kind of a crapshoot, right? Like we have a lot of good research and we understand things, but it's not like you can take somebody's blood, figure out what chemicals are imbalanced, and give them the right prescription. We just kind of have to try things. There's a whole bunch of antidepressants. Somebody comes in, says they're depressed. The psychiatrist says, well, try this. Talk to me again in 2 months. And you come back, you're like, I'm still sad, doc. Okay, that didn't work. Try this one instead. And so a lot of people can get really frustrated with the psychological field, with the mental health field, because at this current state, we just kind of have to try and see what works. And that's an unfortunate reality. We're continuing to improve, but that's just where we are in 2024. I hope someday we visit this video again in 10 years and we'll be like, wow, can you believe we just used to try stuff and see if it worked? Because it's going to be way different in the future. And one of the things that they're finding with this is that if somebody responds positively to a sleep deprivation type of therapy, it can lead you to choose the correct medication that's going to work more long-term. And that's really, really cool. So what do you think? Is sleep deprivation therapy something that you would try? Have you kind of accidentally tried it on yourself already? How did it work? What were your thoughts? What were your results? Put them in the comments down below. I look forward to seeing you in the next video. Until then, bye.